Today on TwinCam, I'm going to be trying my hand at a little spot of machine polishing. So welcome to this second video of little Melvin's NEC prep. This video will end up going out after the show, but we are getting little Melvin here ready for the NEC's Practical Classics Classic Car Restoration Show, which is happening this weekend. It's a great show, slightly smaller than the main November show that is hosted at the NEC, but I prefer this show because it's full of people working on cars, and cars that aren't all show queens. It's cars that are driven all the time or are projects and all that kind of stuff, and so people are doing all kinds of jobs on cars, and it's a fantastic show. Melvin has been to this show before, and as I said in the last video, Melody was due to be the car that was going to that show, but because she doesn't have an MOT, this car is going instead. So it will be the second time this car has been to this show, but that was before I started my channel, and frankly it needs an awful lot of work. So in the last video we cleaned the car, and today we're going to be detailing the exterior of it ready for the show. Somehow I've never machine polished a car before. It's got to the point where machine polishing is the norm. Everybody machine polishes their cars nowadays. It's not the reserve of proper professional detailers. In fact, we're at the point now where hand polishing a car is seen as strange because it's time consuming, labour intensive, and it doesn't produce as good results as doing this. So these are everywhere now. This is a DA, a dual action polisher. So it doesn't just go round and round, it also moves about in other ways as well. So I'm going to be trying to do a bit of this and potentially wrecking my paint as a result. So I have a few pads. This is the pad that came with this Halford's DA. This is the soft one that I'll be doing the final polishing with. But before that, I'm going to be using some Maguire's compound, which I've never used before, with a slightly harsher pad to try and get some of the real swirl marks out of the paint. And then I'll be going back to my trusty Autoglim Super Resin polish at the end. Now once we've polished up the car and hopefully he's looking all nice, I'm not going to wax it because a purely polished car can usually look better than a car that's been waxed. So that'll come later post NEC. We're then going to be going over the bumpers with some trim gel to try and make them look a little more black. I mean, they don't exactly look grey because I did this not too long ago, but these bumpers need going back to black as they should be. Going over the number plates, shining up the exhaust, all things like that to make this car look $1 million before the show this weekend. So as I've said, I've never done this before, and as a result I don't want to go into horrendous detail about how I'm going about this. For me, it's a learning experience, and one I feel that you should all try for yourselves rather than listening to me talking about techniques, products, pads, DAs and all that jazz. By this point, I've spread some of that Maguire's compound across the slightly harsher yellow pad supplied with this Halford's DA. Then put a few dots across it, and I've prodded the pad across the bonnet to get an even spread of product. Before allowing the product to actually cut into the paint, I've got the DA on its lowest speed, allowing the spots I've placed to be worked into every part of the panel. Once this is done, I'm turning it up to a higher speed to begin cutting. Bear in mind, for all you lot who have done this before, I'm a complete amateur. This genuinely is the first panel I've ever attacked with a DA. With the bonnet cut back, I'm moving on to the wings and doors. With the experience of the bonnet and then this side, I began to understand better how much product I needed to use, and I can say with total honesty that I was using far too much in this clip. But these are the things you learn rather quickly once you start giving it a go. I'm also still getting to grips with the weight of the DA and how it moves over the panels. I'm sure you can tell in this clip that it still seems rather alien to me. Not only have I never used a DA before, but I've also never used this Maguire's Ultimate Compound. This product seems exceptionally popular, probably the go-to easily obtainable compound, and its pure popularity is what made me buy a bottle for doing this. If you have any recommendations as to other products you like using, then do let me know in the comments. By the time I got to doing the roof, I'd really started to get the hang of it. I'm using about the right amount of product now, 5 little spots should be more than enough to do just over half the roof. The horizontal panels are much easier, as I don't have to hold the DA to the bodywork. It just supports itself with all the weight it needs. I'm just holding it square to the paint and directing where it goes, and I'm sure you can tell that I'm getting the hang of it now. And once I get to buffing off that section of the roof, the paint is coming up rather nicely. It's not a major change, especially at this point as I'm compounding, but it is cutting away slightly at some of the imperfections. I think with a bit more research and experience, I can get a much better result next time. Take a look at this section of the bonnet. The area to the left of the swage line hadn't been done at this stage, and the section to the right shows the effect of just my first pass with the compound. But now onto the polishing, with the much softer black pad. I can't say these pads are really up to much, and the reviews of this DA show the same conclusion. This pad survived nearly perfectly, but the yellow pad started to eat at itself and be destroyed by the machine. It went in the bin after this session, so as with the products, if you have any recommendations for pads, then I'd love to hear them. After going through the same process of spreading the polish around the bonnet, I set to work bringing a proper shine back to the paint finish. I understand that the Autoglym Super Resin polish is a bit controversial. While nobody complains about it per se, I hear that a lot of people avoid it as it doesn't perform quite up to their standards. But this product is all I've ever used on Melvin, so I can't complain at all. And with the whole car polished up, a quick look over the bonnet shows the results. It looks better in real life, as all these things do, but I'm really pleased with how this DA and these products have brought a bit more life into this 30-year-old paint. This car looks ace. I am really pleased with how this has turned out. This is by far and away the best this paintwork has ever looked, and not that it looks particularly bad, first of all because the car has been loved, at least relatively, and I've kind of kept the paintwork in a decent condition since I've had the car anyway, but there's just a new level that machine polishing has brought up in it. I'll probably put a few pictures in of the car now, probably from the NEC, which will have happened by the time this video goes out, because it just looks brilliant. And now it's not got rid of all the swirls, because I'll probably need to have another go at it now that I've learnt a few things, learnt what I should and shouldn't be doing, learnt how to really kind of control the DA properly, learn how it wants to move and all that kind of stuff. So with another couple of goes, this car will look even better, but even now I'm incredibly happy with the way the car looks. Now, white wasn't my first choice of colour I wanted from this car. I didn't want a car that was a boring colour, as I term it. I just don't get the people who will want a car that is black, white or grey. I just don't understand the appeal. I wanted a Metro that was flame red, that was cranberry red, that was Henley blue, British racing green. So I wanted a proper colour. So white wasn't my choice. I only got this car because I fell in love with the spec. I adore the spec of this car. I love the base model stuff, love the little hubcaps. The three-piece rear bumper objectively isn't very nice, but I love it for its just base modelness, for its poverty specness. And I think the white kind of ties in with that slightly, and the contrast between the black and white looks great as well. So although I didn't want it, I'm really happy that this car is white and the paint is how it is on the car. So hopefully that means now that the paint finish at the NEC will look half decent. I'm sure it'll be perfectly presentable because, of course, the restoration show is about cars that are genuinely being used. There are no perfect cars on display. All the cars have their own lives, their own character, their own little print on them from their owners, and how they've been used, how they've been loved and all that kind of stuff. But I want the car looking as best as it can, because of course I do. And so next we're going to be going over the bumpers, and I thought I'll just show you this quickly. I've started packing all my detailing stuff for the NEC because I need to start getting going with all this stuff, and it all fits perfectly in this particular cardboard box that I had lying around. And because I'm me, it's a Unipart one. It's actually a box from a headlamp I've got for Melody, which is sat just over there outside its box, because the headlamps were completely knackered, to be honest. So that's just the coolest thing. I love Unipart branded stuff. So we are going to be next using some Autoglim bumper and trim gel to try and make this black trim even more black. Now, as I said before, it still looks pretty good because I didn't do this that long ago, but going over it again will make a big difference. Now, from my experience, this is the best trim gel out there. Now, some people may disagree with that, and fair enough, everyone has their own opinions, but I've used this for, 5 years since I've had this car now, and the bumpers have, at least when I've kept up using it, have been brilliant. Now, a few people complain that that their bumpers start to run in the wet, or that they go grey very quickly, and I've never experienced that. Having daily driven this car, I've not experienced it running at all. I have experienced it go grey slightly, but the way in which you can kind of counteract that a little bit is that once you've made the bumpers black, go over them in vinyl and rubber care, because that just adds, it kind of adds a little sheen over the top. It doesn't make them too shiny, because it wouldn't look right with the way these bumpers should look from factory, but it just kind of gives them a sheen that seems to protect it for a little bit longer, so it keeps them black, and when I've used this, they certainly do not run in the rain. So we'll be using some of that, and then some of this on all the bumpers, the rubbing strips, the door handles, and all that kind of stuff to make this car, yet again, I'm saying it for probably the 6th time in this video, make this car look $1 million. The contrasting black and white are part of why I love this car, despite my distaste for boring colours. The poverty spec just does something for me. It's innocent in its own way and completely unpretentious. The Metro 1.1C came with completely plain black bumpers, with posher models adding a chrome strip below the headlamps that adds the perfect amount of Rover-ness to the Metro. At launch, the GTA and GTI retained the black bumpers, swapping the chrome strip for a red one, and the GTI got a body colour front splitter. This bumper and trim gel is brilliant stuff, and the finish is impeccable. Also to do are the bonnet vents. This driver's side one is a blank, and the passenger's is the intake for the heater. Then there's the door mirrors, this side being the new old stock item I fitted a few weeks ago. Then the door handles, fuel filler, rubbing strips, and of course my beloved hubcaps. The rear end gets the same treatment, including the rear wiper blank, and save for the metal centre section in the bumper. The vinyl and rubber care just gives that sheen to both protect the finish and give it a slight depth. It also brings up the number plates slightly. So as will come as a surprise to absolutely nobody, this car yet again looks absolutely brilliant. I love the contrast. As I said before, the contrast between the black and the white is just fantastic, and I love it to bits. But there is, before we finish this video, there's one more bit of the exterior of this car that needs some attention. And it's the one bit to the outside of this car that I've added that people bring up all the time. And it is, of course, the manifold exhaust. Now, it does actually go quite dull, that exhaust, but with a little bit of metal polish, should come up being really, really nice again. So, let's get around the back of the car and polish my tip. The manifold exhaust is the only thing that's properly shiny on the entire car, and nearly 12 months on from when it was installed, it still sounds excellent. Melody will need some kind of exhaust soon, as standard exhausts are boring. There are better things to be using to shine up this exhaust than a microfiber, but I want my lovely pipe to stand out again. What are you giggling at? With all this done, the exterior is ready for the trip down to Birmingham. In the next video, we'll be concentrating on the interior, on getting the seats looking as jazzy as they should be again, shining up the floor mats and general cleaning. But until then, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then please do click like and subscribe to TwinCam as well. I'm forever indebted to my wonderful Patreon supporters, so if you'd like to support me that way, then please do follow the link in the description. And I'll have more videos coming along soon.